Welcome back to the Junkie Sports Podcast. Today, we got the playoffs starting up here in a couple of days, and so we are going to hop right into it, discuss the first round matchups, who our picks are, and how many games we got those series going in. So let's go ahead and start off in the East with the 1 seed and the 8 seed matchup with the Milwaukee Bucks, and it's the Orlando Magic. Am I correct? I believe it's the Magic. Yeah. Sorry. I think it's pretty straightforward, at least from my opinion. I think the Bucks are gonna pretty handily get that series. But how many games do you guys see this going?
4.
I think 4. As much as I'd like to see the Magic just steal one game, I think Giannis understands the weight of this offseason. He's not going to be messing around. And without Jonathan Isaac, I really just don't see him being able to have any answer for Giannis for the rest of the Bucks.
Honestly, a good thing for the Magic would be if they were within 10 points of like maybe 2 or 3 games. I don't. There's no reason that Orlando Magic should win a game without Jonathan Isaac, with Giannis at full steam, like in playoff mode. Like the Bucks team should not have a single problem with the Orlando Magic. So.
Agreed. The only time you've seen the Bucks really be challenged defensively is when a team just flat out outshoots them from beyond the arc. And, Aaron Gordon's been having his fair share of struggles, and Evan Fournier and Markelle Fultz I don't see them having the offensive firepower to really steal a game and make the Bucks stumble along their road further down in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think this series can only go 4. I think the only way the Magic steal a game is if Vucevic just absolutely goes off and Fournier has like 8 3-pointers. Like, I don't know. I just think they're so outmatched. Yeah, I don't know. Only way they steal a game is if Giannis doesn't play, in my opinion. So,
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. That series is going an easy 4. So let's go ahead and flip over into the West, and let's do the 1-8 seed matchup there. A bit interesting. So this year with the playing game scenario, we got the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Portland Trail Blazers, who had their struggles throughout the year, but finally have their team fully healthy with Zach Collins coming back, Nurkic as well. So what are you guys looking at? Who do you think you guys have winning? How many games you guys got that series going?
Okay, well, I think the series is going 7 games regardless. These are 2 great teams. One is extremely hot. One is extremely cold by their standards. And I'll come right out and say I think the Trailblazers are going to upset the Lakers because we just saw Dame and CJ put up 60 against the Grizzlies. And I know the Grizzlies are not the Lakers, but obviously Dame has a lot more than just 31 in him. And the Lakers don't have anyone to guard Dame or CJ. I mean, obviously Avery Bradley's not there. Rondo's coming back soon, but not soon enough. And they've been struggling in the bubble. I mean, they really haven't figured it out that well, I don't think.
Yeah.
They haven't been a great team to watch. So with that, and just with the huge momentum, like all the momentum that the Portland Trailblazers have right now, I think they're a team to be afraid of. And I could see them making like a deep playoff run. Potentially finals. I mean, who knows?
I will say this is by far for me the hardest series to try to project, just because being in a bubble, it's kind of a different circumstance. To me, it has more of a March Madness kind of, some of these teams with more momentum can really get the job done and make some motion in the playoffs more so than you'd seen in previous years in the playoffs. And right now, Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers are red hot. They've been able to get it done in the clutch. And as you mentioned, Ben, they don't really have an answer for Dame and CJ defensively. And obviously, Gary Trent Jr. has been,
incredible.
A nice little surprise.
Really incredible, yeah.
He's been a good surprise for him. And the Lakers are going to have their game plan. I don't know if they're just going to try to double team Dame and try to have some of these other guys beat them. But in the same time, their defense has absolutely been atrocious and has been all season. And so I think that's really what the key for me in this series is going to come down to is can Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers put up enough points where their defense isn't going to matter? Because that's, LeBron and AD are going to have their way, especially with the lack of defensive versatility from the Trailblazers. But, playoff LeBron is a real monster. And, we didn't see him last year with that weak Lakers team that didn't quite make the playoffs. But certainly, let's not forget, LeBron on a mission is a scary man in the playoffs.
That is true.
I my official prediction is going to be Lakers in 7.
So I would just like to say for the record that I am a Lakers fan. I want the Lakers to win. It's just looking at what's happened in the bubble so far and what I think could happen because of it. I think that's why the Trailblazers could win. Just want to put that out there real quick.
Okay.
For sure.
So here I'm gonna give out my take real quick. So both teams have major concerns for me. With Portland, as you said, Davis, defensively, I'm nervous. I really am, because everyone wants to give a hat off to Damian Lillard, and much deserving so. He's been incredible throughout the bubble, but he's been playing so well because their team has put them in these situations where they need him to go score 50, 60 points. And they're in these super close games. They have to play in the clutch because their defense has been so bad that it's a shootout. And that's how every game has been. And that's why and at the same time, I have questions with the Lakers. Like, LeBron and AD haven't been playing well in the bubble. I'm not concerned about them, but the issues where I am concerned are their lack of shooting and their shooting has already been atrocious throughout the bubble. Danny Green can't buy a shot to save his life. Alex Caruso can't buy a shot to save his life. I mean, Deion Waiters has been a little nice, but I mean, even then, like, he's not then like I don't think him and JR can fill that gap. Yeah, I don't think they can fill that gap that Avery Bradley had. Their best player in the restart has been Kyle Kuzma by far, which I do like to see. I think they need Kyle Kuzma to be that solid option that could score 20. I think that's what could put him over the edge. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to see, are the Lakers really struggling, or were they just trying to work through different sets, put players in different positions through the bubble to try and figure out different scenarios, learn about their players to get ready for the playoffs? I don't know, but I'm going to go with the Lakers in 6. That's going to be my final pick. I think the Blazers are a solid team. They're playing incredibly well right now. But I don't know. Look, as you said, Davis, playoff LeBron is a scary man, and LeBron has been on a mission all year long. And I would be surprised if this game went to 7, honestly, just because I don't think LeBron's going to let it get there. He knows that they need to get out of that first round as quick as possible because they have a difficult matchup in the second round. Then they got the Western Conference Finals. It's just going to be really difficult for them this year. So I think he's going to really push his team to get past the Blazers as quick as possible. So I think I got the Lakers in 6.
All right.
So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and move into the 2-7 matchup in the Eastern Conference. So that is going to be the Toronto Raptors and then the Brooklyn Nets.
I got Raptors in 5. I can't say that the Nets aren't going to win 1 because they've been playing a lot better than a lot of people thought they would play in the bubble. Since they've lost so many of their players didn't go to the bubble, they were pretty much laughing stock at first because of how undermanned they were. But they've proved a lot of people like a little bit wrong. Obviously, they haven't been spectacular, but they have been a lot better than a lot of people expected. So I bet they can scratch out a game against the Raptors. But the Raptors have been extremely hot in this bubble. They've been playing great basketball. They beat really good teams, and I don't think this would be a huge task for the Raptors to overcome.
Yeah, defensively, the Raptors have been really, really strong all season, just behind the Bucks in the regular season. But since they've been in Orlando, the Raptors defense has had the highest defensive efficiency of 101.8, and no other team had one better than 106.4. So I mean, that's just a little quick stat to throw at you. But yeah, I mean, they were the first team to arrive in the bubble, and they have the championship mentality and organization, and they've been on a mission all season to prove to teams that they can do it without Kawhi, and that some of those traditional role players last season have stepped up and really taken strides to help carry this Raptors team to a blazing 7-1 in the restart. And Marc Gasol has also been showing up absolutely in this restart. Defensively, he's been giving them more options. And I think the only way the Nets can scrape one together is if Karis LeVert goes off for 40-plus points. But I just don't really see that happening with being able to stick Spicy P or OG Anunoby on him. So for me, I have Raptors in 4.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up with and kind of summarize what both you guys said. I mean, I think we can all agree that I don't see any solution where the Brooklyn Nets get past the Toronto Raptors. I think the Toronto Raptors, obviously, I think they're in that conversation to come out of the East. I think the Bucks are obviously the favorite, but they're in that conversation to potentially upset the Milwaukee Bucks. But I think the Brooklyn Nets have been playing fairly well in this restart. Honestly, it was definitely a surprise to me. Karis LeVert has been playing incredibly well. Joe Harris has been playing well. They have, I can't remember, he has a very weird last name, but they have some dude coming off their bench. I think he has a French name. He's been playing very well. Yeah, I think so. I can't pronounce it. It's some weird long name, but he's been playing well. I've been watching some of the
Nets games. Yeah, he is TLC.
He's good. And so I think the Nets will scratch out a game. I think there's going to be a game where the Raptors are going to have some lapses. And so I think the Nets are going to be able to scratch out a game this year. But so I've got Raptors in 5. So, all right. So let's go ahead and move. Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Ben. So, all right. So let's go ahead and move into the 2-7 matchup in the Western Conference. So we have the Los Angeles Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks. Personally, this might be my favorite first-round matchup. I am extremely looking forward to this one, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say on this. So, Ben, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I want to start off by my pick, and that's just going to be Clippers. There's no way that I don't think that they should have a problem against really any team on paper, like in the Western Conference. With that being said, I also really like the Mavericks, and I know Luka has been going off. I mean, he was first team all bubble. So
Kristaps has also been playing incredibly well.
Yeah.
Second team all bubble. He's been playing very well.
I forgot about that. And their other big man, Max Kleber, he's been playing really well. Tim Hardaway Jr., he's a great shooter. Seth Curry.
Seth Curry's been playing well.
He can shoot. I mean, he's got the second highest 3-point percentage of all time.
Yep.
So I would say that the Clippers are going to win in 6. I could see it going 7. I could also see it going 5. I'd see it more likely going 7 than 5, though. But I do think that the Mavs are going to win a few games, but ultimately they're not going to be able to get by the Clippers.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to actually have the same pick, Clippers in 6. And for similar reasons, although my biggest concern with the Mavericks right now is that they haven't really proven to anyone throughout the regular season or throughout this bubble that they have that clutch DNA. Within the last 2 minutes of games, although they during the regular scrimmage time they have the highest offensive ratings of all time and are setting bunches of records, they're 29th in the league when it comes to the last 2 minutes in the clutch time offense, which is puzzling considering what works in the rest of the game time.
I would like to say though, they came up clutch against the Bucks.
That is true. That is true.
That dime from Luka, that between the legs dime.
Was it a breakthrough? I'm not sure, and I'm not sold necessarily because playoff Kawhi. I mean, he's a robot. He's an animal. But there's been only 3 players that have averaged over 25 points per game in the restart while shooting 48% or higher from 3. And 2 of those are Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. The other is TJ Warren, of course, who's been blazing. But
TJ Jordan, you mean? Did you mean T.J. Jordan?
I said T.J. Warren.
Yeah, you should have meant to say T.J. Jordan.
It's T.J. Jordan, that's for sure.
Oh, for sure. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
But yeah, if Porzingis is able to continue his hot streak, I think they'll be able to scrap a game or two. But being able to have two of the best defenders in the league and Paul George and Kawhi and be able to stick them on Luka, we'll see how Luka shows up. But I'd like to rely on those veteran players to get the job done defensively at the end of the games when it matters.
Yeah, so I'm also going to agree with you guys. I got Clippers in 6. There's several concerns I actually have with the Clippers, and I think, Ben, you kind of hit it. You kind of brought it up a little bit, but I'm going to go in a little bit more depth with it. Is on paper, the Clippers are the best team in the NBA. On paper, though. And I think that's been a conversation all year. I've always found that there's always been a lot of excuses made for the Clippers. Oh, they lost that game because this player was injured. Oh, Kawhi was just resting that night. Oh, Lou Will decided to go to the strip club for the wings. Oh, like there's always something, And the thing is, everyone's like, well, they're so good when they all play together. Like on paper, they're the best team. My question is, when are we going to see that? I mean, I don't know how healthy this team is. I don't know if they're going to be able to last through an entire NBA playoffs. I mean, everyone says, oh, they're just gearing up for the postseason, but we haven't seen it yet. And so there's a lot of concerns I have for this team. I really, really hope the series goes to 7. I mean, with my personal bias, I don't like Kawhi. Like, he's a good player. Not basketball wise. He's just not one of my favorite players in the NBA. But I mean, they're a solid team. I'd be shocked if there's any way the Mavericks beat them. I really, really want this series to go to 7 because I think it'd just be super fun to watch these two teams battle it out. But I'm going to agree with you guys, Clippers in 6. So.
I did have a question regarding this series to kind of see your gauge on Luka. So if Luka is able to make a deep run, and I'll say deep as in getting through to the Western Conference Finals this season, do you think that'll project his legacy and what he's going to be capable of down the line? And I don't want to throw the word GOAT out quite yet. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying, can he kind of take control of the MVP narrative for next season with a deep run this season?
Are you saying make it to the Western Conference Finals or make it to the NBA Finals?
If the Mavs are able to get to the Western Conference Finals as a 7th seed.
For me, I think if they make it into the Western Conference Finals, that means they beat the Clippers, and that also means that they beat the winner of Utah or Denver, which are both very solid teams. I think that is going to put – I don't think – I would still have Giannis as my number one option for MVP for next year. I don't think it's going to change much for the MVP conversation for me. However, I think if you're going to project out his career, I've already said this now. I think he's going to go down as, and this is a conversation for another day to talk about his impact for the future and kind of where his legacy lies. But I think that he's going to go down as the best international player ever. I think he's going to pass Dirk. I think he's going to pass Dirk, and I think he's going to win multiple championships. He's going to have multiple MVPs. I don't think he's ever going to get in that GOAT conversation. To me, his biggest fallback, he can't do anything about it, is his athleticism. I think that's going to restrict him at some point. But that's also a conversation for another day. To answer your question in short, Davis, I don't think him making the Western Conference Finals is going to do anything to impact his legacy that much. I just think there's going to be more to come.
For being only 21 in his first playoff environment, though, I mean, even LeBron had his struggles with his teams early on in his career, and so this would be something to kind of get Luka a jump start onto his playoff legacy.
To me, though, it's going to get, and I don't agree with this. It's just I think this is how that's going to get played out. Is people are going to attribute it to the bubble, because if a 7th seed's making the Western Conference Finals, that's just so the odds of that happening are so low. I just think people are going to attribute that away from Luka and more to the downfall of the teams they played, because that's the only way they're going to make it is if the other teams also play pretty bad. No matter how good Luka and Kristaps play, I just don't think their team as a whole is like good enough to beat these other teams if those other teams are also playing at their best. So, I mean, I just personally, I don't think it impacts his legacy that much. Now, let's say he was a 3 seed or something. I think if they were like a 3 seed and they made the Western Conference Final, to me that's a bigger deal because
wouldn't it be a bigger deal
team.
if he took a lesser rated team? I mean, it's no joke that the Western Conference is already a stacked conference this season with a lot of really, really good teams. And so, I mean, they've been controlling their destiny in the bubble and didn't really have to worry much because they did so well in the regular season before all the shutdown. And so I think for me, it'd be a no-brainer that, being able to take his team deep as a lower seed would be way more beneficial than as a 3 seed. That doesn't really make sense to me.
But. Well, to me, it would if it was a regular season. To me, in the bubble environment, I think that's a factor. And I think okay, let's just throw a hypothetical out there. Let's say Luka averages a 30-point triple-double and the Mavericks make it to the Western Conference Finals. Obviously that's going to be a big deal, and I think it's going to boost his legacy a little bit, but overall, I don't think that's going to be as big of a deal to me if they were the 3 seed and win in, because I think it's going to get portrayed that, so they went through the 2 and 3 seeds in the West, and I think the only way they beat those teams is if those teams played awful, no matter how good Luka played. Like, if they play the Clippers and win, Luka averages great numbers. The only way they're beating the Clippers are if Kawhi and Paul George are completely awful. And if that happens, it's just going to get attributed to the bubble environment and stuff like that. And so, I don't know. To me, it's because of such the rare circumstances we're in right now, and I don't think it's going to impact his legacy that much unless they were a higher seed. I know it's a little confusing because in a normal season, I would agree with you. Like, if he carried the 7th seed, I don't know. I just feel like with the circumstances we're in now, the only way they're going to win is if that team plays particularly bad and there's circumstances they can lean back on as an excuse. Not saying I agree with that as an excuse, but I don't know. I know it's a little confusing, but
no, I got you.
All right. So here's my thing. I think it will help his legacy because he has accomplished so much at such a young age, and this is just going to be another thing. They're going to say, we took down Kawhi Leonard, Paul George in the Clippers. But in all reality, if the Mavs do end up making that run, it's going to be because, like what you said, Teddy, because the Clippers lost it for themselves. Like, there's no reason that Luka and Kristaps at this point in your careers should be able to overpower Kawhi and Paul George. That should not happen. So if it does happen, then we know it's not that. Sure, yeah, Luka and Kristaps earned it, but it's more of Kawhi and Paul George lost it rather than they earned it.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, Ben. That's a very good. That's what I mean. So that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
But and just one last thing to add, I think I don't think whether or not he makes the Western Conference Finals, people are going to look back at the end of his career and say, oh, wow, remember when he was a sophomore in the league and he made the Western Conference Finals? I think people are going to look back on his legacy and say, oh, look, he won 3 MVPs and 3 rings or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't think people are going to be as focused on how close he got. I feel like that only comes to fruition if you're LeBron James or a player in that GOAT conversation where your finals record actually matters. And that wouldn't be a finals record necessarily. But, I mean, I guess even in that scenario, no one cares about how many times LeBron James made the Eastern Conference Finals and didn't win, or any player for that scenario. They care how well you did in the actual NBA Finals. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
All right.
Okay, so then let's hop over back into the East. So we just discussed the Clippers, Mavericks in the West. So in the East for the 3-6 seed, we got the Boston Celtics versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Davis, why don't you go ahead and give us your take?
All right, so I've got the Celtics in 6. So the keys for me in this series come down to Joel Embiid and his size versus the small wings that the Celtics put out there. In addition, I think if Al Horford is able to unlock another level of his game for the playoffs, which he has done in previous seasons, and it's kind of known for being a defensive juggernaut when it comes down to the crunch time of the playoffs and being able to offer him. And this is why the 76ers predominantly, picked him up and paid him that bag. But at the end of the day, with Ben Simmons out, I think it could be a blessing in disguise for the 76ers, which sounds crazy because Ben Simmons is obviously an incredible player when he's on the court. But specifically against the Celtics, it's going to play into their hand a little bit better because they can just rely on Joel Embiid to just dominate as he has throughout the bubble and just have more shooting and space around him to kind of open up their game and not have to really rely on, them doing different defensive sets to kind of play around Ben Simmons' lack of shooting. So for me, though, the Celtics just have too many solid wings, and Gordon Hayward has been playing well.
He's playing incredible.
Yeah, especially off the pick and roll. He's so smart, and he's really shown some.
He's been playing very good as a point forward for them. Very good.
Absolutely. And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are obviously, the real deal. And with Kemba's limited time that he's had in the game, he's been very efficient. And so Robert Williams is going to get a lot of playing time trying to shut down Joel Embiid. And he's had some, promising spurts within the bubble. But I just, at the end of the day, I think the lack of Ben Simmons is going to be too much, and the Celtics are going to overtake him and be able to win this series.
Yeah, I have Celtics in 4. This shouldn't be a tough series at all for them. Personally, I don't view Joel Embiid as really a superstar in this league because he hasn't dominated the way that he should. With the way he's built, he should dominate every night. He should be getting like 30 points, 12 boards, but he doesn't. I mean, he's always – not always, but I mean, he underperforms in my opinion. So I really don't think that is going to change, especially when he doesn't have another superstar to pick up to carry the load with him. So, and because of, Ben Simmons is a huge part of that team. So to lose him, I don't think the 76ers can come back from that, really.
Yeah, so I have the Celtics in 5. My main reason is, without beating the dead horse, you guys basically said it, the Celtics just have such superior depth at the wing position. And I just think their team is so well-balanced and strong and suited for a playoff push. But the reason why I have them in 5 is I think the 76ers can steal a game. And I know this might sound a little backwards, but I think it's because they don't have Ben Simmons. I just think Joel Embiid will actually finally be able to, fully play his position. I think he's going to have a monster series. I just think the lack of actual talent on the rest of the team, and I just don't think they're going to be able to take out another game. So I just have that series going in 5. I'm really looking forward to seeing Joel Embiid being able to play without Ben Simmons because me personally, I think those two players will never, ever work together. And I think they need to decide one or the other. And I think this is a really good scenario where you can really see can Joel Embiid elevate his team as the best player on that team. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But, yeah, Celtics in 5. I don't think there's any way the 76ers even make this a close series. So,
what type of matchup do you think Brett Brown and the Sixers will come out with at the beginning of each game defensively? Because for me, with those 4 wings, they'll probably be starting Matisse Thybulle and
yeah.
But I just don't. I guess I don't know. I don't think the Sixers have really any defensive answer for that amount of wings, and I think they're just going to have an offensive day, and the Celtics are going to take care of business. So
exactly. That's why I think it's going to go to 5 is just because I think Joel Embiid is – I think in general he's going to have an incredible series, and I just think they're going to be able to steal a game. But just like per matchup, it's like as you said, Davis, it's not even close. Defensively, it's just I think the only mismatch the 76ers have is with Joel Embiid. So, all right, so let's go ahead and move into the Western Conference for the 3-6 matchup. So the 3 seed we have the Denver Nuggets, and then for the 6 seed the Utah Jazz. So why don't you guys go ahead and give me your takes for that one?
I have Nuggets in 5. The Jazz. So Mike Conley left the bubble today to be present for the birth of his child. So obviously not going to say you should have done that because you should do that. However, that's a big loss for their team, and with them already being down Bojan, that's two of their two of their top 4 players on their team are not in the bubble. So, they really only have Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And, it may just be a meme at this point, but, their chemistry still can't really be that great after Rudy Gobert gave Donovan Mitchell coronavirus. So, and just with how the Jazz, or not the Jazz, the Nuggets have been playing really well in the bubble. Michael Porter Jr. has been insane. I think that'll translate over into the playoffs because I think that's what kind of player he is. And so, I really don't think it'll be a problem for Denver. Did I say in 6 or 5?
You said 5.
Yeah, I think the Jazz will win 1 game just because they're a good team. They can win 1 game, but I don't think it's going to be anything more than that.
I don't know. For me, I have the Nuggets, but I have it going to 7. I actually think the Jazz, they've been coached great for the last couple seasons, and they are true to their defensive sets that they run. Rudy Gobert is obviously a juggernaut on the defensive side of the ball, and I think the key to this is definitely going to be the lack of Bojan. That's hurting them a lot. They've only been 3-5 in the bubble. But I think without Will Barton and Gary Harris coming back from injuries and getting less minutes as a result, the Nuggets aren't just going to be it's not going to be cake for them. Although yes, Michael Porter Jr. has been an incredible player throughout the bubble. I think for me the matchup I'm most forward to looking at is going to be skinny Jokic versus Rudy Gobert down low. And I think the reason that the Nuggets will be able to edge out the Jazz in this one is going to be because Jokic is able to space the floor a lot more than Rudy Gobert. And with having, good shooters around Jokic to find the ball to, we have to realize that last season in the playoffs, Jokic took off and was an absolute monster, going for triple doubles just about every night, it seemed like. And I think even in this series, one of my predictions is that he's going to average a triple double in this first round.
I can see that.
And so, I've got Nuggets in 7. What about you, David?
So I'm going to split the difference between you guys. I got Nuggets in 6. I think the Nuggets are a better team. It's kind of shown up in the fact that they're the higher seed. I just think the Utah Jazz are too talented, too well coached by Quinn Snyder not to win at least 1 game, but I think they're going to take 2. I think Rudy Gobert is going to do an excellent job guarding Jokic. I think Jokic is still going to have a great series, but I think he's going to at least be able to help disrupt that offense, especially because Jokic is the center and of their offense, and they run everything through him. So I just think the Jazz have got to win at least 1, but I really think they're going to take 2 games. So, Nuggets in 6. So, all right, so let's go ahead and move into the 4-5 seed matchup in the Eastern Conference. So this is going to be a fun one. We got the Indiana Pacers at the 4 seed versus the Miami Heat at the 5 seed. So what do you guys' takes on this one?
All right, this is going to 7, and I want it to go to 7 because of the T.J. Warren, Jimmy Butler beef. And I think that beef actually is going to be the ultimate outcome of going to be the reason why whichever team wins. And I think it's going to be why the Heat win, because Jimmy Butler occupies a vast majority of space in TJ Warren's head. I mean, when the Heat and Pacers played just in the bubble, TJ Warren is coming off of third or fourth, a 30-point game, and he's on cloud 9 at that point, and then he comes out and doesn't play too well against Jimmy Butler, and they end up losing. So I think it's Jimmy Butler knows he's in T.J. Warren's head, and I don't think he's going to let him get away with anything. So and just with the young core that Miami has, it's going to be a great time for them to prove themselves in the playoffs. And this is something that what's his name? Pat Riley. Yeah, that's something that Pat Riley. I couldn't think of his name for a second. He has instilled in his organization from day one. Is you show up in the playoffs. So because of all that, I think the Heat are going to win in 7.
I've got the Heat in 6, and I've been pretty keen on the Heat all season. I really like their grit and grind mentality. I think the leadership that Jimmy Butler brings into the locker room is invaluable in creating a team culture that just goes right along with, everything that the Heat have always been about. And, Bam Adebayo has had an incredible season, and defensively will be able to get the job done against Miles Turner and some of the big boys. And without Sabonis, I struggle to see the Heat and their shooters getting, having too many problems. And Tyler Hero's been really good in the bubble, and Jay Crowder's had some nice moments as well. But to me, the key for the Pacers is going to be if they can shut down Jimmy Butler and try to force some of the other guys to beat him.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you, Davis. I also have the Miami Heat in 6. I think this will be a really entertaining series to see. I think the Pacers are a very underrated team, and I think a lot of people are going to come see that to light when they watch this series occur throughout the playoffs. I think the Pacers have been playing incredibly well in the bubble. T.J. Warren's been playing incredible. Malcolm Brogdon's also been playing pretty solid. So that roster up and down has just been playing very solid throughout the bubble. And so I think they're going to be able to steal a couple games, especially because the Miami Heat have a lot of players on that team. They're kind of playoff inexperienced. Step aside from Andre Iguodala and Jimmy Butler. But I just think the Miami Heat are too talented, too well coached of a team, kind of what I was saying with the Jazz a little bit in the last conversation. But yeah, Miami Heat in 6. So let's go ahead and go into our last series for today and the last first round matchup. So we're going to go in the Western Conference with the 4-5 seeds. We got the Houston Rockets versus the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Oh, man.
This one for me, we don't know when we're getting Russell Westbrook back, do we? It's just kind of game to game.
They said he will miss the start of the playoff series. That's all they've said. So he will, at the very least, not be there for the first game.
I definitely think I have the Rockets in 7, and I'm just going to say 7 because I don't know when Russell's going to come back, but I'm assuming he's going to be back at some point during this series. And I think without Russell Westbrook, if he doesn't come back in this series, I think it would be the Thunder being able to squeak it by in 7. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But in general, I think a healthy Rockets team is a scary matchup for any team. It just is going to come down to if they can get the shooting and enough offensive rebounds in the game, which has been one of the Thunder's. They've been second to last in the regular season on offensive rebound opportunities. And so this is something that, Jeff Green has had some nice games here in the bubble. And without Russell Westbrook, I think, it doesn't hurt them as much as it could, just because, you have guys like Daniel House that can, take it to the rim, drive and kick. or, Rocco do the same, or James Harden, obviously. But I do think he needs that second fiddle to be able to get them a deep run in these playoffs. So just for the sake of having Russell Westbrook healthy, the sooner the better. And I think that helps bolster their chances, obviously, of them making a deep, deep run into these playoffs and surprising a lot of teams.
I think Chris Paul's going to come in with a huge chip on his shoulder. I mean, his first matchup in the playoffs is the team that just traded him away, and I think that's going to motivate him, and it's going to light a fire under his ass, and he's going to make sure that he finds a way to beat the Rockets, and I think it's going to be one of the bigger upsets in the playoffs. So because of Russell Westbrook's absence, I think that's where OKC is going to be able to capitalize the most because of their three-headed guard weapon, pretty much. They're going to be just annihilating everybody. I mean, they can. It's going to be hard for them to stop James Harden. Don't get me wrong, because it's always damn near impossible to stop James Harden. But I think if they can get that, the three of them can get going really well. I don't see the Rockets stopping them. So I could see. It'd be a 7-game series though. So I'm going to go OKC in 7.
Yeah, so I am going to agree with Ben here. I also have OKC with the upset in 7. I think part of it for me is that Russell Westbrook is at the very least going to miss the start of the playoff series, and who knows when he will be back. But even with a healthy Russell Westbrook, although the Houston Rockets are a very dangerous team, I think they're more dangerous to the 1 and 2 seeds in the Clippers and the Lakers for a matchup there. So I think if the Rockets were to win, I think they'd have a really great competitive series with the Lakers if the Lakers win in that second round. But I just think what Oklahoma City has throughout their entire lineup, they have that three-headed guarded monster. And I think they also just match up really well with the small ball lineup that the Houston Rockets run. I don't know. I think it's going to be a really cool series to watch, and watching these two teams battle back and forth. I just think the Oklahoma City Thunder have too many weapons, and I think it's going to be really hard for the Houston Rockets to stay up with them defensively, especially. And the leadership of Chris Paul, I think, is huge. I mean, James Harden has had his playoff struggles in recent memory. I think Chris Paul is going to be able to lead that Oklahoma City Thunder team past the Rockets in that first round. So, yeah, Thunder in 7 is my final prediction.
It's 2020. I'm sure you've thought about making a podcast before. So how do you do it? Well, let me tell you, the easiest way is to use Anchor. That's how we've done it here at Junkie Sports Media. It's real simple. Just download Anchor and you'll be able to record your episodes. They have a big library of sounds that you can use, and they'll take care of the monetization and distribution for you. So just go ahead and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.